I returned to St. Maur in the rain, not the soft kind that kisses your skin, but the kind that clings to your bones and whispers warnings you don't want to hear. The town hadn't changed as much as I had hoped. Still those crooked alleyways, the sigh of the ocean pressing in from every side, and that smell of salt, stone, and secrets. I stepped out of the cab and stood there for a moment, key cold in my palm, staring up at the house I hadn't seen in a decade, my grandmother's house, now mine, now hollow. The wind pushed against the door before I even touched it, as if the house exhaled in recognition. Inside, it smelled like time. Old wood, tea leaves, paper, dust hung in the air like memories. I didn't turn on the lights. I walked through the dark, each footstep echoing louder than the last. My fingers skimmed over familiar shapes, the edge of the kitchen table, the frame of the mirror in the hallway, the scratch on the wall from where I fell once, running to answer a knock that never came. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something in the silence was too alert. I lay in bed listening to the walls breathe, the creak of pipes, the low hum of the city beyond the windows. But underneath it all, something else, a sound too still to be natural, like presence. I told myself I was imagining things until I found it. The letter, folded precisely, left on the old windowsill above my bed, where I used to leave notes for him. It wasn't possible. The paper was thick, soft, too deliberate. My name written in a hand I hadn't seen since I was 16. No signature. Just, you shouldn't have come back. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I stood very still and let the fear wash over me in cold waves, like the sea during winter. And then, I smiled. Because only one person in the world would be arrogant enough to threaten me in the same place we once made promises. He was alive. The next morning, I found the second letter under the kettle. They'll come for you if you stay. But I'm already here. No one knew I had returned. Not really. I hadn't posted about it. I hadn't called anyone. So whoever wrote these had been watching. And that could only mean one thing. I should have left. Instead, I went to the church. It stood at the edge of the city like a wound that never closed, long abandoned, weather-worn, overgrown. But inside, the air was frozen in time. Every pew a coffin of memories. The altar still carried the scent of ash and wax. I walked slowly, boots tapping against stone, heart drumming against ribs like a warning bell. I stood in the center where the stained glass used to cast color across his face in the afternoons. I closed my eyes, felt the weight of the silence press against me, and whispered into the void, I never stopped loving you. The words slipped from my lips like a sin I'd hidden too long, and the silence responded. A breath, a shift, and then, his voice. Low, deep, cold enough to burn. I'm not who you think I am. I turned, fast, but there was only shadow. Misha? I asked it. My voice cracked on his name. The dark shifted again, closer this time, like it inhaled me. You shouldn't have come here alone, he said. My mouth was dry. I needed to know. Know what? If it was really you. Silence, then footsteps. Measured, heavy, slow. He stepped from the dark like it obeyed him. Same frame, broader now. Same mouth, colder now. Same eyes, but empty. Like someone had drained all the color and left only the storm. You're dead, I breathed. I was, he said. That boy died in Russia. I stared. Why didn't you tell me? He tilted his head. Because the man who came back wasn't worthy of you. My heart hit the back of my throat. That's not your choice to make. No, he agreed. But it's the one I made. We stood there, inches apart, a decade of silence buzzing between us like broken glass under pressure. You used to love me, I said. He leaned in, too close, heat radiating from him like a furnace. I still do. My breath caught. He smelled like snow and smoke, like winter before it kills. Then why do I feel like I'm talking to a stranger? His eyes burned through mine. Because you are. I should have run. I should have screamed. But all I could do was whisper, Kotionok. His expression shattered. Just for a second. Elena, he reached for me, hesitated, and pulled away like touch might destroy him. I came to warn you, not to take you back. I don't want your warning, I said. I want the truth. He looked at me like truth was a curse. You think you're still in love with me? He murmured. But you don't know what I've become. Then show me. His jaw flexed. You're not ready. I stepped closer, chest nearly brushing his. Try me. And for the first time, I saw it. Not the boy I loved, not the killer he became, but the man trapped between both. And he looked absolutely terrified of me.
She said my name like it was still sacred, like the sound of it hadn't been soaked in blood and buried beneath a decade of silence. Kotiona. That word shouldn't have touched her mouth. It didn't belong in the ruin we stood in, didn't belong in the same air as me. But when she said it, everything cracked. My spine, my discipline, the walls I spent 10 years building brick by brutal brick. Her voice slipped past it all like a thread pulling through old scars, and for 1 second, I wasn't the wolf. I was a boy in sunlight again. A boy who once loved her so hard he thought it would kill him. I looked at her. I shouldn't have. Her eyes were still wild with disbelief and fury and something worse. Hope. Hope is a dangerous thing when it sits between a woman like her and a man like me. It makes you imagine you still deserve things like warmth, redemption, her. You don't know what you're asking for, I said, quieter than I meant to. My voice didn't carry threats the way it used to. It just trembled at the edges. You don't want to know the truth. I do, she said, and stepped closer, as if the heat rolling off me wasn't warning enough. Whatever it is, I'm not afraid of you. I laughed. It wasn't amused. It was sharp and bitter, and tasted like blood in my mouth. Then you should be. The wind moved through the broken windows, catching her hair and lifting it like smoke around her face. She didn't blink. She didn't flinch. She looked at me like I was the one made of glass. I watched you die, she whispered. Good, I answered. Let that boy stay dead. I can't, she said, and the way her voice broke on the last word, I felt it deep, somewhere no knife had ever reached. I see him. He's still in there. He's not, I said, too fast. She tilted her head, reading every flicker in my eye. Then who are you now? I didn't answer, because if I spoke, if I named him, I'd make him, and Mikhail Volkov should never be made real to. She shouldn't know what it means to grow up in a Russian compound where names are taken, not given, where love is stripped from you cell by cell until all that's left is obedient. Pain taught me how to disappear. Silence taught me how to kill. But she, Elena, she taught me how to ache, and ache is dangerous. I came to warn you, I said finally. That's all. Warn me from what? Her voice dropped, lower now, like she already knew the answer. From them, I said. From me. She took another step, close enough that I could feel the tremor in her breath, could count the freckles across her cheekbone, could smell that same soft lavender she used to press between pages of her books. My hands twitched at my sides. I wanted to touch her. God, I wanted it so badly my bones clenched. But I didn't. You think I can't handle who you've become? She asked. I shook my head. No, I think you can. That's the problem. Her mouth parted, just slightly, and I leaned in, drawn like gravity didn't give me a choice. The space between us hummed, charged. My lips stopped a breath from hers. I don't want to hurt you, I said. The truth, for once. Then don't, she breathed. I closed my eyes. Her breath warmed my face, and for one terrifying second, I let myself feel it. Not lust, not violence, just her. But footsteps broke the moment. Distant, deliberate. I turned fast, hand already at my waist where my weapon waited, heartbeat slicing sharp through ribs. She looked over my shoulder. Someone's here. I nodded once. My entire body went still. I moved toward the sound, low, controlled, every step practiced, every nerve on fire. I knew those steps, that rhythm, that arrogance. Victor, not tonight. Elena, I said, not turning back. Go home. No. My jaw tightened. Don't argue. She came to my side anyway, whispering like a breath on my neck. You don't get to tell me what to do anymore, Misha. I turned then, really turned, and the look I gave her, God help me. I meant it to scare her, meant it to send her running, but she didn't move. Instead, she reached up. Her fingers brushed my jaw, gentle as snowfall. Whatever darkness is following you, she whispered, I'm already inside it. And I almost kissed her. Almost.
He almost kissed me. That word, almost, hung in the air like smoke, like a match held inches from dry skin. The kind of silence that follows isn't empty. It crackles, it bites, it wraps around your lungs and dares you to breathe. I didn't move, couldn't. My fingers were still on his jaw, and I felt the tension buried beneath the surface, like a man carved from storm and steel, one blink away from unraveling. His skin was cold where it should have been warm, like the heat had been stolen from him years ago and never returned. I whispered his name, not the one the world feared, but the one I buried like a secret inside my ribs. Misha. His eyes opened slowly, pale, sharp, unreadable. But I saw it. The tremor, the war behind his stare. Don't, he said. One word, but it felt like a door slamming shut. You don't scare me, I breathed. His lips curved, but it wasn't a smile. You should be terrified of me. I leaned in, closer than close, until our foreheads almost touched. Then why haven't you run? His breath caught. It faltered. And in that tiny break of armor, I saw the truth. He wasn't afraid of me. He was afraid of what I made him feel. The steps outside grew louder. A second set now, slower. He turned his face away, cursing under his breath in Russian, low and rough like gravel. "Get behind me," he said. Not a request, an instinct, but I didn't move. "Tell me what's happening." "I told you," he muttered, drawing a knife from beneath his coat. The blade flashed silver in the dim light. "I came to warn you, and now they know I'm here." My heart thudded. Who? Men who don't believe in ghosts. Men who think I should have stayed dead. The door creaked. Mikhail stepped forward, his shadow swallowing mine. He didn't blink, didn't flinch. That stillness, it was terrifying, beautiful, the kind of calm that only comes before destruction. And when the door opened, he didn't hesitate. He moved like liquid, silent and brutal, dragging the first man in before he could speak. One twist of his arm and a soft thud against the floor. I didn't scream. I couldn't, because I realized then I wasn't watching someone I used to know. I was watching what he had become. The second man was slower, dumber. He tried to speak, but Mikhail's blade kissed his throat before the words formed. "Don't kill him," I said, my voice shaking. "Not here." Mikhail looked at me, not the way he had before. This time, it was the wolf. Ice and fire. Power wrapped in flesh. "You want answers?" he asked. "Then don't look away." He pressed the man to his knees, knelt before him like a priest before confession. "Who sent you?" The man spat blood and curses. "Victor knows. He's coming." Mikhail's jaw locked. The name hit like poison. "Let him come," he said. And then, he let the man go. No blade, no threat. Just a look that promised death at a later hour. A slow one. When the door shut again, the church was silent. Mikhail stood with blood on his sleeve, chest rising and falling, eyes wild beneath the calm. He turned to me. "Now you know." "I don't," I said. "Not really." He wiped the blade clean on his coat, sheathed it like it belonged under his skin. "I don't kill without reason, Elena." I stepped toward him. One step. "But you were going to." He didn't deny it. "That's who I had to become." "Because of him?" I asked. "Victor?" He nodded once. "My father sent me to Russia to train under his brother. I thought it was a lesson in loyalty. But it was exile, torture, transformation. And you survived," I whispered. "Surviving wasn't the hard part." He paused. "Coming back was." My hand found his again. His fingers didn't close around mine. "Not yet. You don't have to protect me like this," I said. "Not with silence, not with distance. I can't protect you any other way." I lifted his hand to my chest, pressed it against the place where my heart had been beating too fast since he stepped from the shadows. "Then stop pretending you don't feel this." His fingers curled, just barely, but enough. "I shouldn't," he said. "But you do." He didn't answer, didn't need to. The look in his eyes wasn't love. Not yet. It was need, hunger, recognition, and maybe something far more dangerous.
Her heart under my palm was a drum, frantic and fragile, a sound I had forgotten existed. For a second I thought if I pressed harder it would sink into my skin and stay there, a pulse to replace the one I lost years ago. But then I remembered where we were, what waited outside these crumbling walls, and I let my hand fall away. Distance was safer. Distance was a weapon, yet she stayed, her scent sliding around me like smoke, lavender and salt and defiance. She had always been like this, touching the wound instead of the armor, calling me Misha when no one else dared. "You should go," I murmured, but it came out like a plea, not an order. "Before they come back." "I'm not leaving you here," she whispered, and the echo wrapped around the stone like a vow. "You don't get to decide that." I closed my eyes. It was dangerous, how soft her voice felt against my ears. "You don't know what you're inviting in." "Then tell me," she said, stepping closer until the heat of her body reached mine. "Tell me why you became this." My jaw tightened. The knife was still warm in my pulse still steady from the fight. "Because someone had to survive." My eyes found hers again. "And survival is not gentle." Her breath caught. "But you're not just surviving now, are you?" I didn't answer. The silence between us grew heavy, a net drawn tight. I could feel her gaze trying to pry me open, to reach the boy she thought was buried inside. She didn't understand. That boy had been taken apart piece by piece until only this remained. I wanted to tell her. I wanted to tell her everything about the compound in Russia. The cold that stripped you to bone. The drills that turned children into weapons. The nights of obedience where the only warmth was the thought of her. But words would not save her. Words would paint targets on her skin. Instead, I stepped closer, close enough for her to feel my breath slide against her mouth. "Kotyonok," I said, low, a growl more than a name. "If you stay near me, you will burn." "Then burn me," she whispered back. "But stop pretending I'm made of glass." For a moment, I forgot to breathe. My hand rose without permission, fingers brushing a strand of her hair back, knuckles grazing her cheek. The tremor that ran through her wasn't fear. It was something I remembered, something that should have stayed buried. Her lips parted as if to speak, but the sound never came. Outside, a car door slammed, then another. Heavy footsteps on wet gravel. "They're here," I said, voice sharp now, soldier's voice. "Stay behind me." "I won't hide," she replied, though her pulse leapt against her throat. "You don't have to," I said. "Just do exactly what I tell you." The door creaked. Shadows moved against the stained glass, warped and monstrous. I shifted, drawing my gun this time instead of the blade. Steel felt steadier in my grip than her hand ever could. The footsteps came closer, deliberate, like a countdown. I glanced at her. "When I speak, you don't. Understand?" She nodded once. "I understand." The door swung inward and two men entered, guns low, faces hidden under black hoods. They expected the boy who left St. Mare, not the man who came back. I moved before they could lift their weapons, a blur of weight and violence. The first hit the floor with a choke. The second staggered under a blow to his ribs. They weren't prepared for close range. They weren't prepared for me. Elena pressed herself against the wall but didn't look away. Her eyes tracked every movement like she was memorizing the shape of the man I'd become. I caught the second man's wrist, twisted, felt the crack of bone. He dropped his gun, gasping, and I shoved him back toward the door. "Go tell Victor," I hissed, the Russian creeping into my voice like frost. "Tell him I'm coming for him." He scrambled out, dragging his partner, the sound of retreat filling the hollow church. Silence returned, thicker than before. My hands shook, not from exertion, but from the nearness of her. She hadn't screamed. She hadn't fainted. She just stood there, breathing hard, eyes locked on mine. "Now you've seen it," I said, holstering. "This is who I am." "No," she whispered. "This is what they made you. There's a difference." I almost laughed, but it came out as a sigh. "You're still looking for a boy who's dead. I'm looking at a man who's still alive," she said softly, "even if he doesn't know how to be." Her words slid under my ribs, slow and cutting. I turned away, running a hand over my face. "You don't understand what Victor will. He'll use you to. Then teach me how not to break," she said. I stared at her, really stared. She was trembling but didn't back down, fire wrapped in skin, and for the first time in years I felt something like heat crawl up my spine. Not rage, not discipline, hunger. The kind of hunger that could end me if I let it. "You're playing with a wolf," I murmured. Her lips curved faintly. "Then stop pretending you don't want to bite." The church swallowed our breathing, each inhale a thread pulling us closer, each exhale a promise neither of us was ready to make. I stepped forward, closing the space between us, until the tips of my boots touched hers. I could see her pulse, frantic at the base of her throat, could feel her magnetism drawing me in like gravity. I lifted a hand, stopping just short of her skin, and for a heartbeat we hung there. Two shadows, one storm.
He didn't touch me. He hovered, his fingers suspended in the air like the breath we both held, trembling just above my skin. The distance between us was thinner than light, and louder than silent. My heart was a drum, not of fear. No, never that, but of anticipation, of the storm building inside both of us, the one neither of us dared name. He looked at me like I was something fragile and forbidden, and I wanted to scream that I wasn't. I wanted to shatter the stillness and drag him into the gravity pulling us together. But I didn't move. I waited. I waited for the man he was to lose control, for the boy I once loved to reach for me like he used to. He never did. His hand fell away, and something cold replaced the heat between us. He stepped back, the space filling with things unspoken. History, violence, restraint. I should have said something. I should have broken the spell. But the way he looked at me stole the words from my throat, like he wanted to devour me and save me in the same breath, like he didn't know how to want without hurting. "I can't," he said, voice low, tight, raw. "Can't or won't?" I asked, softer than I meant to. His jaw flexed. "Both." The answer landed between us like a verdict. Final. I nodded, but I didn't believe him. Not really, because I saw the tremble in his fingers before he dropped them. I felt the war inside him in the way his breath stuttered. He wasn't made of stone. He was made of fire, and fire hides its burn. He turned away, walking deeper into the shadows of the church like he needed darkness more than air. I followed, not because I was reckless, but because I knew better than to let him vanish. Again. "Mikhail!" I called, his real name thick on my tongue. He stopped, stiffened, and then said, without turning, "You shouldn't say that name." "Why?" "Because it belongs to a man you don't want to know." I stepped closer, my voice steady now. "That's not true. I want to know everything." He laughed, but it was hollow. "You think I'm tragic. You think you're the one exception. I think you're lying to yourself," I said. And this time, when he turned to face me, there was no mask, just exhaustion, and rage, and longing he couldn't kill. "What do you want from me, Kotyonok?" he asked, the nickname curling around me like smoke, like silk laced with danger. Do you want to be ruined? Is that what this is? I didn't flinch. I want the truth. He moved so fast I barely registered it. One breath, one blink, and he was in front of me again, crowding my space, eyes burning. The truth? He whispered, voice sharp and intimate. I dream about you with blood on my hands. I wake up hard and starving and furious because I can't scrub you out of my system. You're in every thought, every ache, every restraint I've ever had to learn just to keep myself from dragging you into the dark with me. I swallowed, throat tight, breath thin, then stopped fighting it. He laughed again, breathless this time. You don't know what that means. Then show me, I said, and there was no softness left in me, only need. But he didn't kiss me. He pressed his forehead to mine, eyes closed, hands fisted at his sides, like if he touched me now, he wouldn't stop. Like if he gave in, he'd lose whatever shred of control he had left. I want you, he breathed, more than I've ever wanted anything. But I don't know how to want without taking, without breaking. You won't break me, I whispered. He opened his eyes. That's what scares me. I lifted my hand to his face, fingers grazing the edge of the scar just below his cheekbone, the one I hadn't asked about yet, the one that begged for a story. I'm not afraid of your darkness, I said. I'm afraid of you running from it. His breath hitched. He leaned in so close his lips brushed mine when he spoke. I've never run from anything, Elena, except you. And then he pulled away again, fast, final, and I knew I'd found the center of him, the part that still belonged to me. Now I just had to make him believe it.
Her touch still lingered on my face. That light graze of her fingers, the way she'd traced my scar like it wasn't something ugly, like it meant something more than... I could still feel the heat of her skin, even though I'd stepped away, put space between us again, forced silence between her heartbeat. I stood at the edge of the church's broken altar, hands braced against the cold stone, trying to remember who I was, before her voice threaded itself into everything I thought I'd killed inside me. But she made it impossible to. Elena was fire and defiance and everything I was never meant to have. I could still hear her breathing behind me, steady, strong, like she knew I wouldn't hurt her, like she trusted me more than I trusted myself. That terrified me more than any bullet ever could. The last time I trusted any, I bled for. In Russia, they called it training. I called it being hollowed out and rebuilt with ash. No safe words, no softness, only obedience and survival. They tore the boy apart so a weapon could walk in his place. And when I came back, when I buried that name and wore the mask I promised myself nothing soft would ever get close again. But she walked straight through every wall I'd built and didn't. I turned. She hadn't moved. Her eyes were on me, still wide, still searching, like I was some puzzle that only she could solve if she just stayed long enough. You don't understand what you're doing, I said, voice low, guttural. She tilted her head slightly. Then tell me. Stop hiding behind silence and teeth. My mouth curved, not quite a smile. Teeth are all I have left. She stepped forward. Brave girl. Always brave. Then bite. I'm not asking for softness, Misha. I'm asking for truth. Her saying that name again, it cracked something open. Something I didn't know still lived in me. The way she said it wasn't soft. It was sacred, dangerous. Like it belonged to her, not to me. I closed the distance between us in a breath. My hands found her waist before I even realized I'd moved, fingers sliding around her like a claim. She didn't step back. She leaned in, chin tilted up, challenging and vulnerable all at once. You think this is what you want, I whispered, voice thick with everything I hadn't said. But you've never seen me without the leash. Her breath hitched, but her gaze didn't waver. Then take it off. God, this woman. She didn't just tempt the wolf, she fed him. I bent my head until my lips hovered just above hers. Not touching, just breathing the same air. Her hands slid up my chest, fingertips tracing the edge of my collarbone like she was mapping out where to break me. I'm not kind. I'm not safe. You're not supposed to be, she breathed. I groaned, low and the sound vibrating between us. Every muscle in my body screamed to taste her, to drag her into my arms and never let her go again. But this wasn't about lust. It never was. This was need. Old, aching, poisoned need that had never been satisfied. And she was the only antidote I'd ever known. I finally touched her mouth, just a brush, just enough to feel the tremble. Her lips parted, and I caught the sound of her inhale, soft and sharp, and it nearly undid me. But I pulled back. She blinked, stunned, breathless. Why do you keep stopping? She whispered. Because once I start, Kotionok, I exhaled, hand tightening waist. I won't stop. Her eyes flashed. Good. I pressed my forehead to hers, trying to anchor trying to remember that this wasn't a game, that she didn't know what it meant to be claimed by a man who'd been trained to conquer. But she didn't fear me. She feared what would happen if I kept pretending we didn't exist. So I whispered the one truth I swore I never would. I've never loved anything in my life, I said, not even myself. But I remember what it felt like when you looked at me and I still had a soul. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just touched my chest, right where that soul used to live, and said, "Then let me remind you, I didn't deserve her, but I would burn the world to keep her."
He said he would burn the world to keep me, and somehow that felt safer than silence. Safer than all the gentle lies I'd been told in the absence of him. I didn't need flowers or vows. I needed this. The fire in his voice, the ache behind his control, the bruised kind of love that didn't know how to ask, only how to claim. His body didn't move, but everything inside him leaned closer, like the space between us was a thread pulled too tight, ready to snap, and I wanted it to. God, I wanted the snap. I didn't tell him that. I just looked at him, memorized him, like a thief stealing seconds. His face, that brutal beauty softened only by proximity, was carved from things I didn't dare name. Regret, hunger, devotion twisted into something feral. My hand was still resting on his chest, and beneath it, I felt the tremor. Not fear, not hesitation, something deeper. A struggle, as if his body wanted to worship me while his mind begged him to run. "You feel it too," I whispered, not asking, just naming it. The air, the pull, the invisible thing wrapping around us like gravity made of memory. "Don't deny it again," he exhaled slowly, eyes half-lidded, watching me like he was trying to solve a riddle written in flame. "What I feel is dangerous. Only if you lie about it," I said. That made him move. A sharp step back, like my words hit harder than a bullet. I missed his warmth instantly, the loss of it like standing naked in snow. He turned away, pacing now, hand through his hair, breathing like he'd just fought something bigger than a man. Then he stopped, head lowered, shoulders tense. "I don't know how to love without violence," he said quietly. "Without control, without owning." My breath caught, because I believed him, because he wasn't dramatizing it. He was confessing it. And still, I didn't move. "I'm not asking for softness," I told him. "I'm asking for truth." He turned slowly. The light caught his face in slashes, shadow and bone and something close to ruin. "You think you know what I am." "I do," I said, "because I know what you were." A flicker of pain behind his eyes. "What I was is dead." "No," I said, voice steady. "It's buried, and you've been grieving it for 10 years. He stared, long, silent. Then finally he said, "You're the only thing that ever saw me." I stepped toward him, slow, deliberate, the way you move when you're reaching for something wild and wounded. "Then let me keep seeing you." His lips parted, but no words came. His hands clenched at his sides. I could feel him unraveling inch by inch, like every part of him was screaming for permission, permission to feel, to take, to want. And still, he didn't touch me, so I touched him. My fingers grazed the inside of his wrist, where his pulse betrayed him. Quick, desperate, human. I slid my hand up his arm, across his chest, felt the strength trembling beneath the stillness. "You want me," I whispered, eyes locked on his. "You've wanted me since before you knew what wanting was." He inhaled like the truth hurt. "You think I'm light," I said, "but I'm not. I'm shadows too, just softer ones." He reached for me then, finally, and when his hands landed on my hips, they held me like I was the edge of something he'd been falling toward forever. He pulled me against him, not roughly, but with the kind of precision that comes from obsession. Our bodies aligned, chest to chest, breath to breath, like we'd never been apart. His hand moved to my lower back, pressing me closer, and my head tilted just enough for his mouth to find the curve of my jaw. Not a kiss. A warning. "Tell me to stop," he breathed. "No," I said. His lips brushed lower. My pulse surged. My hand slid up into his hair, fingers twisting, anchoring. "I don't do halfway," he warned. "Not with you. Not ever." "Then don't," I said. He pulled back just far enough to meet my eyes, and the look he gave me wasn't soft. It was violent, reverent, starved. Then he kissed me. Not gently, not sweetly. He kissed me like the world was ending, and I was the only thing he wanted to take with him.
Her mouth tasted like memory, wild and aching. I wasn't ready for how fast she undid me, how easily she pulled apart the distance I'd spent years building, brick by brutal brick. I kissed her like I wanted to erase everything else, the blood, the silence, the years I spent convincing myself she was better off without me. But she didn't let me disappear into hunger. She kissed me back with purpose, with defiance, as if she could rewrite me from the inside out, tongue to tongue, breath to breath. I'd forgotten how soft she was. I'd forgotten what it meant to feel something other than restraint. My hands gripped her waist like a lifeline, dragging her closer, until there was no air left between us, until I couldn't tell where my heart beat. I moved her back slowly, guiding her against one of the cracked stone columns, the weight of her spine pressing into the cold. She didn't flinch. She arched into me like she needed it, like I was gravity, and she'd grown tired of resisting it. Her fingers curled in my shirt, pulling, grounding, daring. I kissed her deeper, harder, every part of me burning to the surface, years of buried need erupting all at once. I should have stopped. I knew that. I knew this was the line, the one between control and something hungrier, darker, but I couldn't pull away. Her breath broke against my lips when I slowed. My hands moved to her face, framing it, holding it like it was something precious, even if I didn't deserve it. She looked up at me, flushed, lips swollen, chest rising and falling like she'd just run from something and straight into me. Her eyes locked on mine, unblinking. The fear I'd braced for wasn't there. "Elena," I murmured, her name barely a sound, more of a confession. She exhaled. "Don't say it like a goodbye." "I'm trying not to," I whispered, thumb brushing her cheek. "But it's not safe." "I'm not asking for safety," she said. "I'm asking for you." I closed my eyes, jaw tight, fighting the part of me that wanted to fall to my knees in front of her. "I don't know how to be that man any." "Then be this one," she whispered. "Right now, with me." I dropped my forehead to hers, grounding myself in her stillness, her fire, her presence. Everything in me, trained, fractured, remade, fought the gentleness she offered. Not because I didn't want it, because I wanted it too much. I wanted to taste her again, slower this time. I wanted to find the places she broke when I touched her right. I wanted to crawl inside the sound she made when my mouth found her throat, her collarbone, the skin just beneath her ear. She tilted her head just slightly, as if she could hear my thoughts, feel them vibrating through my skin. My mouth found that spot beneath her jaw, and when she gasped, soft and sharp, I nearly lost every piece of control I had left. I kissed her there, slow, deliberate, reverent. Her hands slid into my hair, nails grazing my scalp, and I growled low in my throat, a sound I didn't recognize as mine. She made me feel animal, worshipful, terrified. "Tell me you're mine," I said, voice rough. "I've always been yours," she breathed. "You just forgot." My grip tightened, not possessive, anchored. "Don't say things you can't take back." "I don't want to take them back." I lifted my head slowly, staring into her. She was firelight and thunder, dusk and promise. I didn't know how to hold her without burning. I didn't know how to walk away without bleeding. So I kissed her again, and this time, it wasn't desperate. It was slow, intentional, the kind of kiss that lingers in bone, the kind that leaves behind fingerprints on your soul. When we finally broke apart, both of us breathing hard, her hands slid down my chest, settling over my heart. She looked at me like I was human again. "What happens now?" she asked. And I almost said it. I almost told her everything, about Victor, about the blood war coming, about how the only reason I came back was because I knew they'd use her to destroy me. Instead, I said the only thing I knew for sure. "You stay close to me, no matter what." She nodded, no questions, no fear, and I knew then, whatever happened next, she wasn't going to save me. She was going to walk straight into the fire with me.
The way he kissed me lingered in my bones, long after his hands had dropped away, long after silence returned to the church like it was something holy. I could still feel the shape of him against me, the imprint of his body carved into mine like a secret I didn't want to keep. There was something terrifying about being seen so fully, touched not just with hands but with memory, with intent. Mikhail didn't just kiss me. He claimed me with a kind of desperation that felt ancient, like he'd been starving since the moment we were torn apart. But it wasn't hunger alone. There was grief behind it, rage, and something he hadn't yet named, something I wasn't sure he knew how to. Now, he stood with his back to me, body tight, neck bowed like he was holding something in, something sharp and rising. I watched him in the quiet, my heart still racing, my breath still trembling through the aftermath of us. I knew that stillness. I recognized it from years ago, from the day I watched him vanish into the shadow of his family's world. It was the stillness before he made himself disappear again. "You're already retreating," I said, my voice low but steady. His shoulders rose barely. "I told you, it's not safe." "I'm not asking for safe," I replied. "I'm asking for honesty." He turned slowly, like every inch cost him something. When our eyes met, something inside me tightened, not from fear, but from knowing. The truth was already there, in the flicker of guilt behind his eyes, in the way his jaw clenched like he wanted to speak and couldn't. "There's something you're not telling me," I said. He didn't deny it. He just looked at me for a long time, as if memorizing the way I stood when I was calm, the way my mouth held his name even when I wasn't speaking it aloud. Finally, he nodded once. "I came back because Victor made a move," he said, "something reckless." Something that changed everything. My stomach twisted. What kind of move? He killed someone close to me, Mikhail said, voice tight, clipped. And now he's using you as bait. He knew I'd find you. He wanted me to. I stepped toward him, the church's cold floor echoing underfoot. So you're telling me I'm just leverage? No. His voice snapped like a whip. You're the reason I haven't burned this entire city to the ground. I swallowed. Then tell me the rest. He exhaled through his teeth. Victor wants control of the southern corridor. Saint-Mar is part of that. He made a deal with the Tsarevich ring in Moscow, and I broke it. I walked away. I left their chain of command. That makes me a liability. But why now? I asked. Why me? Because you were always the part of me I couldn't erase, he said. And he knew if he touched you, I'd come back from hell itself. My pulse stuttered. So what happens next? He walked toward me, slow and deliberate, until I could feel the heat of him again, until I had to tilt my head to keep his gaze. What happens next is war, he said. But I won't let him take you. I won't let him touch you. You don't get to decide that alone, I whispered. If I'm part of this, then I choose where I stand. His eyes narrowed. Where do you stand, Kotionok? I didn't blink. Right here. With you. He looked at me like I'd just offered him something he didn't know how to hold. And maybe I had. Because what I was giving him wasn't just loyalty. It was faith. Not in who he'd been, not in what they made him, but in the man who still looked at me like I was the only light he remembered. He reached out, brushing his thumb along my cheek, then down to my jaw, slow and reverent. If anything happens to you, he murmured. It won't, I said. We're not alone in this. Something passed through him then, a flicker of something like hope, dark and unfamiliar, but real. He leaned in, pressing his lips to my forehead, soft this time, like a promise, or maybe a prayer. I closed my eyes, letting the warmth of it sink into my skin, and for one fragile second, there was no war, no threats, just us, two broken things holding each other steady in the eye of a coming storm. And I knew we wouldn't survive this separately, but together, we just might.
She said we might survive this together, and I wanted to believe God. I wanted to believe that her voice could silence the war pounding through my veins, but I knew better. Hope is a luxury men like me don't get to keep. It's a beautiful lie dressed in her skin, her eyes, her voice, whispering things I can't afford to need. And yet, when I looked at her, standing there like a vow I never made but always felt, I couldn't turn away. Her courage didn't come with armor. It came with softness, with stillness, with that terrifying ability to stay. Even after she'd seen every sharp edge I tried to bury, I let her touch me, let her press her body to mine like it belonged there, like we hadn't lost years and blood and names. Her presence was louder than the silence in my head, louder than the ghosts I left behind in Russia. When she looked at me, I remembered who I was before they broke me, before I became something people feared in the dark. But it was a dangerous thing, letting her close, because I wasn't just hunted now. I was exposed. Every breath she took beside me was another crack in the wall I'd spent a decade fortifying. And Victor, he would use that. He'd already started. I took her hand, lacing our fingers together, and led her out of the church, into the night. The air was sharp with salt and rain, the kind of cold that made your lungs sting. I didn't speak. I couldn't. The truth still tasted too raw in my mouth. She didn't press me, just stayed close, like she knew I was holding everything together with threads and instinct. We reached my car, parked in shadow 2 blocks down. I opened the passenger door for her, waited until she was inside, then rounded to the driver's side and slid in. The engine roared to life, the sound sudden, intrusive. I turned down the headlights and drove with purpose. Every turn calculated, every street change rehearsed. I didn't take her to my safe house. I took her somewhere only I knew, somewhere no one had touched in years. The old apartment above the port, bare concrete, no windows on the east wall, locks thick enough to stop memory. I pushed the door open and let her walk in first. Watched the way her eyes adjusted to the low light, her silhouette soft against the brutal lines of... She turned to face me. This is where you go when the world tries to eat you, isn't it? I nodded. This is where I go when I need to remember I'm still human. She walked slowly, touching nothing but reading everything. Her presence shifted the space, made it feel like something other than exile. She turned back toward me and reached for the collar of my coat, fingers curling into the fabric. You don't have to protect me from your darkness, she said. You just have to let me see it. I closed my eyes, her touch searing through the shell of control I wore like armor. I stepped forward, letting the door slam shut behind me, and caught her by the waist. My hands weren't gentle. They were honest, hungry, desperate, grounding. You keep looking at me like I'm worth saving, I whispered against her. Because you are, she said. No hesitation. I've killed people. I know. I've tortured them. I know. I've dreamed of burning this city to the ground. She looked up at me, gaze unwavering. Then let me be the reason you don't. I kissed her again, this time slower, deeper, with everything I wasn't supposed to feel. She didn't shy away. Her mouth opened beneath mine like she'd been waiting for this version of me, the one that didn't hide, didn't apologize. My fingers slid beneath the hem of her shirt, feeling the warmth of her skin, the curve of her back, the fragile line of her spine. She gasped into my mouth, and that sound, it shattered something final inside me. She pulled me with her, backward toward the bed I never used for sleep. Our bodies moved in sync, not frantic, but deliberate. Every touch was a declaration. Every breath was a promise. She wasn't afraid of she welcomed him, and for the first time in my life, I let him want something without trying to destroy it.
I never imagined that surrender could feel like power, that letting him touch me, really touch me, wouldn't erase who I was, but reveal it. My skin still hummed with the memory of his hands, not rough, not cruel, but reverent in a way that made my chest ache. He held me like he wasn't just trying to keep me close, but like he was trying to memorize the shape of forgiveness. The bed was beneath me, but it wasn't where I fell. It was where I rose, because in his arms, I didn't feel small. I felt chosen. I felt seen. He hadn't spoken since, not with words, but his body said everything. The way he moved, the way he lingered, the way his breath caught when mine did. I had felt the violence in him before, sharp and barely restrained. But this was different. This was a storm learning how to be rain. I watched him now, standing shirtless at the edge of the bed, his chest rising slowly, hands flexing like they didn't know how to be empty. The scars that lined his back told stories he hadn't yet trusted me with, but I didn't need the words. I knew what pain looked like when it lived inside your skin. He turned, and when our eyes met, I felt it again. That gravity, that draw that had never once loosened its grip. His voice came quiet, roughened by everything we hadn't said. You should sleep. I shook my head slowly. I'm not tired. He looked down, jaw clenched, as if my answer complicated something he wasn't ready to confront. You will be, he murmured, a thread of heat tucked beneath the softness. Then stay with me. He didn't move for a heartbeat. Then he did, crawling back into the space beside me like he didn't trust the floor to hold his weight. His presence changed the air, dense and intimate. He didn't touch me at first, just lay there, staring at the ceiling, as if every part of him was fighting the stillness. I reached for his hand beneath the sheet, lacing our fingers slowly, gently, like a question. His grip tightened almost instantly. You keep looking at me like I'm yours, he said, voice dark and low. Because you are, I replied. That's dangerous. So am I. He laughed, soft and bitter. Not like me. No, I said. Not like you. But I'm not afraid of your edges. He turned his head toward me then, eyes narrowed, voice like silk dragged over a blade. You should be. Maybe, I breathed. But I think the part of you that terrifies everyone else is the same part that would burn down the world just to keep me breathing. His jaw twitched. His body shifted. And suddenly he was on his side, watching me with the kind of intensity that turned blood into thunder. You think I'd protect you because I care. You do care, I said, sure of it. He leaned closer, his voice barely a thread of sound. I'd kill for you, Kochanok. I already have. The words didn't shock me. Not like they should have. Maybe because I already knew. Maybe because I had always known the price of loving a man who only understood loyalty in the language of blood. Then don't waste it, I whispered. Don't waste what we could be by hiding behind what they made you. His hand came to my face then, slow and deliberate, thumb brushing along my cheekbone, like I was something fragile and precious and unbearably dangerous all at once. You make me want things I don't know how to keep, he said. Then let me teach you. His breath hitched. His forehead came to mine, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. We just existed, tangled in silence and heartbeat, and the kind of closeness that had nothing to do with skin. You're not safe with me, he whispered. I never wanted safe, I said. I wanted true. He closed his eyes. I felt it. That moment. That fracture where something hard inside him cracked just enough to let the light in. And then his mouth found mine again. Slower this time. Deeper. Not as a promise, but as proof. And I kissed him back. Because some storms are meant to be chased.
She kissed me like she wasn't afraid of the dark. Like she wasn't afraid of what I'd done, what I might do, or what I could become when the last thread of restraint snapped. There was no hesitation in her touch. No tremor in her breath. She leaned into the chaos of me like it was familiar, like she recognized every sharp edge and still wanted to stay. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. Not her presence. her belief, her absolute refusal to look away when I gave her every reason to run. My fingers stayed curled around her jaw, the pads of them memorizing the softness there, the shape of her. I kissed her with something deeper than want, something older than language, something I'd buried with the name they erased from me in Russia. Elena was not my weakness. She was the reminder that I hadn't been born this way, that I had once been a boy who'd been promises, in sunlit and ink-stained fingertips. And when she touched me now, I remembered the shape of that boy's heart, how it beat too loudly, too honestly, and how it broke the first time she cried. I pulled back slowly, breath rough, gaze locked on her swollen lips, the flush on her skin. My voice came out low, the kind of rasp that tasted like reverence and warning all at once. If you stay, there's no going back. I'm not looking back, she said, and her fingers tightened at the nape of my neck, grounding me. I'm looking at you. I almost closed my eyes to it. That look, that steady, shattering gaze that made the weight of every scar on my body feel like it meant something, like every sin could be undone if she kept her eyes on me long enough. I shifted, rolling to my side, pulling her with me. The sheet tangled around us but didn't hide the heat still simmering between our skin. She pressed her forehead to mine, our breaths sinking in quiet rhythm, slow and deliberate. There was no war in her touch, only a kind of mercy I'd never been offered. I used to dream about you, I murmured, even in Russia, even when they made me forget everything else. What did you dream? She asked, voice soft, but not timid. That your hands could bring me back from the dark. Her breath caught, the way it always did when I told her something. And have they? She whispered. I didn't answer right. My fingers traced the curve of her spine, memorizing each notch like a vow. They've made me want to try. Her hand rested over my heart, and I felt it, her pulse echoing through her palm, steady and fearless. You don't have to try alone, she said. You're not alone anymore, Misha. God, that name. On her lips, it didn't sound like a memory. It sounded like salvation. I kissed her again, slower this time, like I was sealing a promise into her mouth. She melted into it, her body molding to mine without resistance. And for a moment, just one, I believed we could survive this. I believed that maybe, just maybe, I didn't have to lose everything to keep her. But the world doesn't give second chances without demanding something first. A vibration broke through the stillness. My phone, low, urgent. I tensed immediately. She felt it too. Her body froze against mine as I pulled away and reached for it. One glance at the screen and my jaw locked. Victor, blocked number, message only, 5 words. We have the girl, Clara. I stared at it, blood going cold. Elena's voice was at my back. What is it? I turned to face her, the war already rising behind my eyes. They took someone. Her expression didn't shift in fear. It shifted in fury. Then we take her back, she said, and in that moment I knew. I wasn't the only one ready to set fire to the world.
His expression didn't shift when he read the message. It calcified. A silent kind of rage that didn't scream. It simmered, controlled, lethal. I watched the way his jaw tightened, the way his breath slowed instead of quickened, like every cell in his body was taught to prepare for war with stillness. But I felt the storm rising underneath, felt it in the way his hand gripped the phone like it might shatter in his palm. I didn't have to ask who. I already knew. Clara. And I knew what that meant. It meant Victor was done circling. It meant we were out of time. And still, my voice didn't tremble when I said it. Then we take her back. He looked at me then, like I'd said something he wasn't expecting. Not because he didn't think I meant it, but because he knew I did. His eyes held mine, sharp and unreadable, until something shifted beneath the surface. Something softer, something broken, something that only showed itself when no one else was looking. You've never seen what I become when they touch what's mine, he said, quiet, measured, like a secret laced in steel. Then show me, I replied. I'm not afraid of what you are. I'm afraid of what you'll lose if you pretend you're not. That did it. That cracked the mask, just for a second. His hand reached for me, cradled the side of my face like I was the last good thing left in a world that had forgotten how to be gentle. His thumb brushed my cheekbone and he said my name like it hurt to say it. Elena. And I leaned into it. Into him, because I knew he wasn't asking for permission. He was asking for forgiveness in advance. He dressed in silence, the efficiency of a soldier, each movement smooth, controlled, inevitable. I followed without question, no hesitation. The cold night air bit at my skin as we stepped into the dark, but it wasn't the wind that raised goosebumps along my arms. It was him, the shift, the change, the mask lowering like a curtain drawn over something sacred. In the car, he didn't speak. He drove like the road already belonged to him, like the city knew better than to slow him down. His fingers drummed once against the wheel, then stilled. I could feel the calculation in his silence, the strategy folding into itself like a weapon being loaded. I watched him in the dark, his face carved from shadow and restraint, and I wanted to reach for him, to remind him I was still here. But I didn't. Because sometimes, the only way to love a man like Mikhail Volkov is to let him become what the world fears, so he can protect what he doesn't know how to live without. We stopped in front of an old building by the docks, abandoned, cracked windows, a rusted gate that groaned as he pushed it open with his shoulder. I followed him through without question. Inside, it smelled like salt and oil and forgotten things. He turned to me then. Finally, his voice was low, controlled, deadly. You stay behind me, no matter what you hear. No, I said. I stay beside you. His jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. He just handed me a small blade from inside his coat, the handle worn, the metal dark. You ever used one? He asked. I looked him in the eye. No, but I learned fast. He almost smiled. Almost. Then the door creaked open, and everything inside him went still. We moved as one, quiet, focused. My heart pounded, but not from fear, from certainty. From the strange, terrible knowledge that I would bleed for this man, that I would kill if it meant keeping him alive. We found her on the second floor, tied to a chair, bloody lip, defiant eyes. Clara looked up the second we stepped in, and something in her expression crumpled. Not from pain, from relief. Mikhail stepped forward, and the shadows moved. 3 men, armed, waiting. But they hadn't expected me, and they hadn't expected him to stop pretending he wasn't a monster. He didn't hesitate, and neither did I.
They thought tying her to a chair would make me hesitate. They thought 3 men in the dark with twitching fingers and second-hand pistols could stand between me and retribution, but they hadn't done their homework. They didn't know what I looked like when someone touched what was mine. They didn't know what happened when I stopped pretending to be civilized. And worse, they didn't know Elena was here, watching, breathing, burning beside me like something sacred wrapped in war paint. I didn't speak. I moved, fast, precise. The blade in my hand wasn't for show. It was a whisper of what I used to be, what I became when they stripped the softness out of my body and replaced it with purpose. The first man lifted his weapon and I was already there, slamming him into the wall, blades slicing under ribs with surgical finality. He dropped before he could scream. The second turned too slow. I snapped his wrist before his finger reached the trigger, watched his mouth gape before I silenced him with the hilt to the temple. Clean, cold, efficient. The third tried to run. He made it halfway to the door before Elena stepped into his path. No hesitation, no flinch, just movement, smooth and terrifying in its calm. Her hand shot out, blade drawn. She didn't aim to kill. She aimed to wound, hamstring, drop him hard. And when he hit the floor screaming, she turned to me, not for approval, not for praise, for confirmation that she was still standing beside me, not behind. I gave her one look, and I knew. We weren't just surviving this. We were rewriting it. Clara groaned from the chair, blood staining the corner of her mouth. You're late, she muttered. I knelt, cut the ropes. She winced, but didn't cry out. Victor? I asked. She nodded, lips tight. Left 20 minutes ago. Thought you'd take longer. I helped her up slowly, scanning her body for breaks. You okay? I will be, she said. Then her eyes slid to Elena. Something flickered. Surprise. Respect. She came. She fought, I said. Clara's gaze sharpened. Then you really are fucked. Elena didn't smile. She just met Clara's eyes and said, calm and unwavering, we both are. I felt it then. That shift. The pivot from escape to retaliation. Victor didn't just want to bait me. He wanted to test her. To see if I'd let her drown while I swam in blood. And he'd just received his answer in bruises and blade work, and the quiet fury in Elena's breath. We moved out fast, Clara leaning against me as Elena led the way, eyes sharp, ears tuned to every creak and gust. She didn't walk like prey. She moved like she had nothing left to lose but me, and I'd never wanted her. Back in the car, silence fell like ash. Clara winced as I stitched her lip in the rear seat, her voice low, broken. You know what this means, don't you? I nodded once. He won't stop. Elena turned to face me. Then we end it. There was no softness left in her tone, no room for fear. Only the echo of everything we'd survived, and something more dangerous. Everything we were willing to become. For each other. For this. I reached for her hand in the dark, found it waiting, steady. You ready? I asked, voice like gravel and fire. She didn't blink. I've been ready since you said my name like it was the last thing you'd ever speak. And in that moment, I knew. The wolf was no longer hunting alone.
The silence in the car wasn't hollow. It was alive, breathing, tense. Every second pulsed between us like a fuse burning low. like the moment before lightning strikes the earth and splits it open. Mikhail's fingers were wrapped around the wheel, but his knuckles weren't white. They were steady, too steady, like still water over something violent. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I knew the storm was coming. I could feel it crawling under my skin, humming through the seams of him, coiling tighter with every mile we put between us and the blood we left behind. Clara had fallen into a strained, silent sleep in the back seat. Mikhail hadn't looked at me once since we got in, but I knew he was aware of me. Every breath I took, every shift of my body. I could feel him tracking me like a second heartbeat, always aware, always wired. And I couldn't decide if I wanted to reach across the space between us and calm him or burn with him, maybe both. The rain started as a whisper, gentle against the windshield, soft enough to be ignored, but it grew heavier with every block, every turn deeper into the bones of the city. It sounded like something waiting, like the sky knew what we were about to do and came to bear witness. He parked in front of a warehouse that looked like it hadn't breathed in a decade. Steel doors, broken lights, rust eating through metal like memory eats through time. He didn't move to get out right away. He just sat there, hands on the wheel, eyes forward. And when he spoke, his voice was so low it felt like it belonged to the dark. "He's expecting me." "Good," I said. "Let him." He turned to look at me then, and for the first time since Clara's rescue, I saw it. Not rage, not restraint, but ache. Deep, endless, carved behind his eyes like a scar no one else could touch. "I can't guarantee I'll come out of this alive," he said. I reached for him, fingers sliding over his jaw, grounding him to me. "You don't need to promise me survival. You only need to promise me truth." His eyes fluttered shut for a breath, like the weight of my words settled deeper than anything else ever had. Then he opened them and took my wrist in his hand, gently, reverently, and pressed a kiss into the center of my palm. It was soft, almost holy, and it felt like goodbye. But I wouldn't let it be. "I'm coming with you," I said. "No. Yes. Elena, I told you I wouldn't stand behind you." He exhaled, sharp and frustrated, and full of fear disguised as fury. "You think I can watch you walk into a room that was built to destroy me and not fall apart? Then don't fall," I said. "Fight." The silence after that wasn't still. It was roaring. It said everything we didn't have time left to say. And when he finally nodded, it wasn't surrender. It was understanding. It was the moment we stepped into the fire, together. We entered through the side, quiet, fast. He moved like shadow, like smoke, like war in a suit of flesh, and I followed. Not like prey, but like prophecy. He led us through steel corridors and forgotten stairwells until we were close enough to hear the heartbeat of the place. The voices, the hush of orders and footsteps, and the kind of calm that only comes before something breaks. He stopped just short of a metal door. "He's in there," Mikhail said. I reached for him, took his face between my hands, made him look at me. "Then let's end it." And he kissed me. Not like a man going to war, like a man finally coming home.
Her kiss tasted like the end of something and the beginning of everything I never believed I'd be allowed to want. Not peace, not forgiveness. Her. She didn't kiss me like I was a man walking into a death sentence. She kissed me like she trusted I'd come back from it. And that terrified me more than any bullet ever could. Because if I didn't, if I failed, her faith would die with me, and that was a weight heavier than blood. I pulled away slowly, the ghost of her lips still clinging to mine, and looked at the door like it owed me something, like I could will it to crack open under the pressure of what lived in my chest. Behind it, Victor waited, my uncle, my enemy, the man who finished the job my father started when he sent me to Russia to be broken, and now he wanted to end it on his terms. But I had none left to give. I turned to her one last time. She didn't flinch. Her eyes met mine like steel, like a vow. If I was flame, she was the one who walked straight into the heat without blinking. "Stay behind me," I said. "No," she replied, quiet but resolute. "Beside you." I didn't argue. Not this time. The door groaned open with a sound like breath held too long. Inside, dim light, dust, concrete walls painted in shadow, and him, sitting like a king in a collapsing empire, suit pressed, hands folded, expression smug. Around him, 3 men, armed, tense, but not afraid. Not yet. I stepped in first, every sense wide open. Elena close, half a breath behind me. Victor looked up slowly like we were interrupting something sacred. "Mikhail," he said, "you brought a guest." I didn't answer. I didn't blink. His eyes slid to Elena. "Ah, the girl." A smile tugged at the edge of his mouth. "Now I see why you're willing to." Elena didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her silence cut sharper than any insult. I felt her pulse like a drum between us. Not fear, fury. "I didn't come here to bargain," I said. Victor stood, slow and theatrical, like he still believed this was a performance and not his execution. "Of course not," he said. "You came to die. You just haven't admitted it yet." I stepped forward. He didn't move. "You took Clara." He raised a brow. "Collateral. You used her to bait me, to remind you who you owe your spine to." I smiled, cold, hollow. "You trained me to survive, not to kneel." His voice dropped, low and cruel. "And yet here you are, still a boy trying to impress the ghosts that built you." I lunged, not with rage, with precision. 1 second we were standing across the room. The next, I had him against the wall, forearm pressed to his throat, gun drawn and pointed at the space between his eyes. His men lifted their weapons, but I didn't look away from him. I didn't need to, because Elena had already stepped to my side, blade drawn, eyes blazing. "Try it," she said to them, her voice a whisper drenched in iron. "I dare you." Victor coughed, breath shallow. "She's got teeth. She's got fire," I said, "and she's not yours to speak about." He laughed, a choked, bitter sound. "You won't kill me. You don't have the stomach to sever the last piece of your past." I leaned in, mouth to his ear. "Then you really never knew me." And I pulled the trigger.
The sound of the shot wasn't what broke me. It was the silence that followed. Not empty, full. Full of breath held too long, full of endings written in blood, full of the way Mikhail didn't move for a full heartbeat after Victor collapsed like something hollow finally folding in on itself. His arm was still raised, smoke trailing from the muzzle of the gun like a thread unspooling between violence and mercy. His face didn't twist in satisfaction. It didn't soften in relief. It stayed carved in something darker, something ancient, like grief too deep to name. I didn't speak. I didn't reach for him. I let the moment settle, heavy and sacred, because I knew what it cost him to pull that trigger. This wasn't vengeance. This wasn't retribution. This was release. The end of a legacy that was never his to carry, handed down like a curse, burned out of him one command at a time. And now, it was over. The men around us didn't move, didn't breathe. One dropped his weapon. Another backed away slowly, eyes flicking between Mikhail and the body on the ground as if deciding whether to fight or run. But they already knew. It was done. The king had fallen. The wolf had bared his teeth, and there was no blood left to spill that wouldn't taste like ash. Mikhail lowered his arm with mechanical precision, as though his body hadn't yet realized what it had done. He looked at me then, and I saw it. All of it. The cost. The weight. The violence braided into his spine, finally unraveling. His mouth parted like he wanted to speak, but nothing came out. So I crossed the room in 3 steps and wrapped my arms around him like it was the most natural thing I'd ever done. Because it was. He didn't resist. His arms folded around me like a collapse, like a man remembering what it meant to be held without consequence. His breath shuddered against my neck. I said nothing. I just stayed there, anchored to him, while the empire crumbled around us. "You're shaking," he whispered finally. "So are you." He let out something between a laugh and a sigh, a sound that fractured in the middle. "I didn't think I'd feel anything. You did the only thing left to do." He pulled back just enough to see my face, his hand brushing my hair behind my ear with a tenderness that didn't match the blood on his fingers. "And you stayed," he said, like he still couldn't quite believe it. "I told you," I whispered. "If you burn, I burn." He kissed me then, not fiercely, not desperately, but like I was the first breath after drowning. And when he pulled away, his eyes were clearer than I'd ever seen them. Not empty, not haunted, just free. Behind us, one of the men finally spoke. "What now?" Mikhail turned to face him, his voice low and steady. "Now you choose. Stay, and follow something new. Or walk away and pretend this never happened." The man didn't answer. He didn't need to. The others followed his lead. Silent nods, dropped weapons, a quiet surrender to something inevitable. Mikhail reached for my hand, interlaced our fingers, tight. "We're not done," he said. "Not to them. To me. I know. There will be consequences. I don't want peace if it means losing you." His grip tightened. His voice dropped, barely audible. "Then stay with me. No matter how dark it gets." I stepped closer, chest against his, breath tangled. "I already am." And when we stepped out into the rain, into the night that no longer owned us, it felt like the first page of a life we hadn't dared to write, until now. The rain didn't cleanse anything. It didn't soften the ache or wash the blood from beneath my skin. It only made the silence louder. Elena walked beside me through the downpour like she belonged in it, soaked to the bone, eyes steady, spine unbent. She didn't ask where we were going. She didn't need to. She understood the language of aftermath better than anyone. She knew some wounds don't scream. They whisper, and they never quite stop. I kept her close without touching her, afraid that if I did, I wouldn't be able to let go. Not because I couldn't, because I wouldn't. And this part, I had to do alone. We didn't return to the safe house. We drove through the city's spine, where the buildings leaned like tired men, and the streets remembered every step I'd taken to become what I am. I parked outside a courthouse that hadn't mattered to me in years, but tonight, it did. Tonight, I needed someone to know. I needed someone to listen. Someone who didn't wear a weapon but still held power. Not because I feared consequence, but because I was done hiding, done pretending there was any part of me that could keep this life and deserve her. Elena waited in the car. She didn't try to stop me. She didn't ask for an explanation. She just looked at me like I was already forgiven, and that was harder than anything Victor ever did to me. I walked into the station with every camera dead ahead. I didn't wear guilt. I wore clarity. No mask. No weapon. Only my name. I gave it. I gave them the locations, the names, the operations. I gave them the graveyards they didn't know to dig. I gave them everything. And when they asked why now, why this, why turn on an empire I'd helped build, I said her name, Elena, because the world that existed before her was dust, and the world that would come after needed something more than ruin. They processed me quickly, too quickly, like they'd been waiting for the devil to walk through the door wearing skin. I sat in a cold, white room, fingerprints on glass, lights too bright, and for once, I didn't feel caged. I felt clean, not safe, not absolved, just clean. A man who had nothing left to hide. It wasn't until the silence returned, thick, sterile, suffocating, that doubt found me, not about what I'd done, but about what it would cost her. The headlines, the judgment, the eyes on her that would follow her through every room, wondering why she'd loved me. And I almost broke. Not for me, for her, because she deserved something gentler than the shadow I left behind. But then the door opened, and she walked in. They shouldn't have allowed it, but somehow, she did it anyway. Her hair damp from the rain, eyes unflinching, heart louder than every rule in the room. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. She sat across from me, took my hand in both of hers, and just held it. That was the moment I knew. I'd never been free before her. Not really. Not even when I ran. Elena, I whispered, throat tight. Her thumb brushed over my knuckles. You're here. I don't regret it. I know. I just didn't want them to touch you with my sins. They never could, she said, because they're not yours anymore. And somehow that broke me more than the violence ever had. Because when she looked at me now, she didn't see a man surrendering. She saw a man becoming. He looked at me like he didn't know how to deserve this moment, like the quiet between us might crack if he breathed wrong. But I held his hand tighter, anchored him there, skin to skin, pulse to pulse, because I needed him to know that this wasn't mercy. This was choice. Mine. Fully and irrevocably mine. I wasn't loving him in spite of the ruin. I was loving him because he walked through it and still reached for light. The room around us didn't matter. It could have been a cell or a sanctuary, it made no difference. The chairs were metal, the light overhead too white, too cold, but none of it touched the heat between us, the gravity that pulled his eyes back to mine every time he tried to look away. He wore his guilt like a second skin, but it didn't scare me. I didn't come here to wash it off. I came to be the mirror that showed him who he was underneath it all. You don't have to say anything, I whispered. He did anyway, voice low, rough, beautiful in the way it almost broke. You shouldn't be here. I should be wherever you are. They'll come after you now. I'm not afraid of shadows, I said. I've walked with one long enough to know how to survive it. He closed his eyes like that truth hurt more than the chains they'd eventually place around his wrist. But I wasn't afraid of the time. I wasn't afraid of what would come, because the worst part, losing him, was already behind us. Everything now was forward. Everything now was choice. They'll ask questions, he said. Then I'll give them answers they won't understand. Why? He asked, barely a breath. And I leaned in, my lips brushing the edge of his jaw, a kiss so soft it felt like memory. Because I would rather love a man who walked through hell than wait for one who never had the courage to enter it. His exhale was shaky, chest rising like it didn't know whether to fight or fold. I stayed close, my forehead pressed to his, our breath a rhythm only we knew. He didn't kiss me. Not then. He just looked at me with that storm still flickering in his eyes, and I realized something vital and quiet and absolute. This wasn't a goodbye. It was a beginning whispered in the ruins.
She held my gaze like it was a promise. Not a soft one, not easy. The kind that required blood, breath, bone. The kind of promise no one makes unless they mean to carry it to the end of the world. And I believed her, because I'd seen the way she walked into fire. I'd watched her stand still when bullets could have been waiting. I'd heard her voice when everything else went quiet. And now, in this room where the walls pressed close and the future was still unwritten, she looked at me like she'd already chosen the ending, one where I didn't die a monster, but lived as a man. They came for me at dawn. The sound of keys, the metal click of inevitability. She didn't let go until they told her to, and even then, her touch stayed, in my skin, in my chest, in the ache behind my ribs that felt more like hope than. The cuffs didn't scare me. I'd worn worse, carried worse. The cold metal around my wrists wasn't a cage, it was proof that I'd made a choice, that I'd dismantled the empire brick by brick and handed them the wreckage, but none of that mattered until I saw her. 31 days, that's how long it took. Court, deals, statements, faces I didn't recognize calling me everything I already knew I was: traitor, murderer, leader, witness. And finally, free. Not by forgiveness, not by mercy, by utility. They needed me to close the circle. I gave them names, and in return, I got air, sky, the taste of something like beginning. But she was what I came back for. She waited at the edge of Saint-Mer, where the road kissed the horizon, where the sea met the land in a hush of waves and second chances. Her arms were crossed, her eyes unreadable, and still, my breath caught when I saw her, because nothing had changed, and everything had. I stepped out of the car, slow, cautious, like I didn't want to spook the only future I wanted to keep. She didn't run to me, she waited. I stood in front of her, wind sliding between us, and I said the only thing that mattered. You came. She nodded once. You kept your promise. My throat tightened. I'm not the same. I know. I'm still dangerous. She stepped forward, closed the last of the distance. Her hand lifted, fingers brushing my face, slow and deliberate, like she was reminding me that I was real. So am I, she whispered. And then, her arms were around me, and I broke, quietly, fully, right there, in her warmth, in her breath, in the way she buried her face against my neck and didn't let go. We stood there for a long time, just breathing, and for the first time in my life, I knew what peace felt like. It sounded like her heart.
The ocean never stopped whispering here. It didn't roar, didn't crash. It murmured, like it carried every secret we buried and kept them safe beneath the tide. I came back to this place because it's the only one that ever felt like stillness. Not absence, not silence, stillness. The kind that holds you without asking questions. And today, I needed it. Not because I was afraid, but because some memories aren't meant to be replayed in noise. They deserve quiet. I stood by the window of our little house, the one with walls we painted ourselves, and floors that still creaked in all the wrong places. There was a soft breeze, and it carried his scent. Not cologne, not smoke, just him, heat and dusk, and something that always made my chest feel too full. He was outside, somewhere between the line of the horizon and the pull of the sea, watching the edge, as if it could answer something the world never had. He didn't know I kept the letters, all of them. The ones I wrote after he left, the ones I never sent, the ones that filled the space between hope and survival. I found them last night, tucked in the back of a drawer like a wound that forgot how to bleed. I didn't read them. I didn't need to. I remembered every word, every curve of his name, every whisper of love written in the dark by a girl who didn't yet know what it meant to wait without guarantee. And yet, I would do it all again. Because the man who came back wasn't the same boy I lost. He was more. He was sharpened, weathered, forged in the fire of his own undoing. And somehow, still mine. People don't understand how we survived. They think love is clean, soft, linear. But love, real love, is brutal. It's the decision to stay when it would be easier to go. It's holding someone while they fall apart and not asking them to pull themselves together for you. It's building something from ash and being willing to light it again if that's what it takes to keep them warm. I stepped outside barefoot, toes against the cool wood of the deck, and watched him, Mikhail, shirt unbuttoned, hair tugged by wind, gaze fixed on the sea like it might finally forgive him. I didn't call his name. I just walked to him and pressed myself to his back, arms sliding around his waist. He didn't flinch. He reached for me like it was instinct, like nothing could happen without this. Without us. Tell me what you're thinking, I whispered. He didn't answer right away, just placed his hand over mine, fingers tracing the bones slowly, like he still couldn't believe I was real. I don't think anymore, he said softly. Not when I'm with you. I rested my cheek against his shoulder, letting the wind wrap around us, letting the ocean say all the things he didn't. You were always mine, even when you forgot. I never forgot, he murmured. I just didn't know how to come home. I closed my eyes, breath-catching. And now, he turned slowly, pulling me into his chest, his mouth grazing my forehead, then lower, over the curve of my jaw. Now, I don't leave, he whispered. Not ever again. We stood like that until the sun began to dip, gold bleeding into the sea. And I thought, this is what redemption sounds like. It sounds like breath shared between two people who didn't break.
The ocean looks different when she's next to me, quieter, as if it knows it no longer owns the loudest part of me. For years, it was the only place that didn't ask for explanations. It matched my rage, my silence, my rhythm. But now, it feels like background noise to the only thing that truly holds me. Her breath, her voice, the way she says my name like it never belonged to anyone else. Mikhail, not the wolf, not the air, not the weapon, just the man who found a way to crawl back from the edge and stay. She's asleep now, curled in my old sweatshirt, her legs tangled in the sheets like she's still fighting for space she already owns. There's a bruise on her thigh, faint now, fading, but I remember how it got there. I remember the moment I failed to keep her safe, even for a second, and how she looked at me after like I hadn't failed at all, like surviving was enough, like choosing to stay meant more than winning. I rise without waking her. My feet find the floor quietly, out of habit, out of instinct. Old ghosts don't vanish with new beginnings. They just shift their weight. I still feel them in the dark corners of the room, still hear them in the lull between breaths, but they don't bite the same way. Not since she touched every part of me I thought I had to keep buried, and didn't flinch. Outside, the sky is turning that deep violet shade that means the day is giving up its fight. I like this time, the in-between, not night, not day, just breath, just pause. I light a cigarette out of muscle memory more than desire, let it dangle from my fingers as I lean against the railing and watch the world tilt a little quieter. The city is a distant, our house is a pulse, and she is everything I never knew how to want and almost too late. I think about the first time I saw her again, after the darkness, after the blood. That moment in the church when she whispered that she'd never stopped loving me, and I replied like a coward, "I'm not who you think I am." But she already knew, she always knew, and she didn't run. I don't know how to deserve that. I don't know how to carry a love that doesn't come with chains. One breath at a time, one morning, one night, one kiss against her bare shoulder when the sun finds her skin before I do. Behind me, the door creaks. Bare feet. That slow, sleep-heavy walk that tells me she didn't mean to wait but followed the ache and, "You're brooding again," she says, voice soft, sleep-roughened, perfect. I turn slightly, not enough to look at her. "Didn't mean to wake you." "You didn't," she murmurs, sliding her arms around my from behind, her cheek pressed against my spine. "I just couldn't sleep without." I close my eyes. There it is, that quiet violence, peace. I turn in her arms, the cigarette forgotten, the night folding around us like something made of silk and scars. "You always find me," I whisper. She tilts her head. "Because you're mine, and I don't lose what's mine." I press my forehead to hers, nose brushing nose, her breath tangled in mine. "I didn't know a man like me could have something like you." She smiles. Slow, lethal, beautiful. "Then you didn't know what kind of woman I am." And right there, under the bruised sky and the hush of everything we survived, I finally say it out loud, not like a confession, but like a truth I carved into my ribs the first time I touched her. "I love you." Her smile doesn't falter, it deepens. "I know." And just like that, the darkness lets me go. Thank you for reaching the end. If these words stayed with you, if even a breath of this story touched something buried deep, I want you to know, your presence here means more than you think. When you like, comment, or share this story, you help it find someone else who might need it just as much. Someone searching for a voice in the dark, for love that feels like survival, for softness inside the storm. Your interaction isn't just a click, it's fuel. It's the reason I keep writing with soul and surrender. It's the reason I believe stories can still save us. If you felt something, anything, leave a sign, a single word, a heart, a quiet, "I'm here." And if you haven't yet, subscribe. It's free, and it means this journey continues with you. Turn on notifications if you'd like to know when the next heartbeat arrives. And if it's not too much, share this with someone. A friend, a stranger, someone who needs a reason to believe that even in a world this loud, there are still stories whispered like a promise. Let's spread them. Let's make space for love to echo in places where pain has been too loud for too long. Thank you for being here, and may you always, always feel welcome in this quiet rebellion of hearts.